Here we go. I'm trying to get work done. There's Nick. We'll go look at why I'm not going to make a video for a little bit. Why I'm busy. But here's Nick's toy, making me jealous. What is it? 355. He bought a little stand on Craigslist and probably spent more on the stand than he wanted to. Got a radiator, cooling fans, switch panel. My battery, by the way, junk. He got this thing wired up. When he does charge the junk battery, we'll run it. He could say something about it, but got I think a 700 double pumper, somewhere around the 305 duration. How much lift you got? Like five and a quarter, something like that. 520 lift. What's the duration? 302, 305?
310's the average.
310 advertised. And it sounds like it. It's going into a Nova, right? Nah, you're gonna put it in something else.
No, you gotta go in a Nova.
Alright.
Unless I buy something else.
So I'll come back to that. But it's vacation time. I'm trying to pay for it. So I got a 05 STS. There's the old engine. It swallowed a valve. I don't know what happened, but this intake valve actually dropped out of whatever, number 4 maybe, and ran back up the other intake valve. So you know there's some pretty bad damage in there, and that's what you got to do to take it out. Tranny's way over there, and you just dropped the whole darn subframe, strut towers. So I'm in the middle of swapping everything over. So in case anyone wonders why I didn't make a couple videos lately, I've been doing this stuff. You ready, Nick? Oh, the jump pack.
Your battery.
My jump pack's probably just as junk. Fuel pump. That's probably the way my engine would sound if I built it. snap, Nick! Oh, all right. No leak. This is me jealous. Not looking at the camera. Well, now I am. This one here is a 2008 Buick Lucerne. They actually have a anti-lock brake and traction control light. So the ABS light's on over there, and it says service traction control. That right off. So that's all kind of tied into the ABS system. And if I go into current codes, I have the C0035 left front wheel speed sensor circuit. So doing some preliminary checks. When I first started this, we were doing some other stuff on it as well. I think rear brakes, and I didn't get a chance to get to my part. So the first thing I did is I'm checking, I'm back probed over there. I'm just checking everything's plugged in. I'm checking the sensor resistance. So let me get set up. I just have some jumper wires made up to make it easier, and I was just hooking my test leads up. And between, you know, the circuit of the wheel speed sensor, lost my, is, you know, about 1,000 ohms, which I believe is in spec. I can look that up and confirm it, but it's not an open circuit. So my next, you know, just because I was already here, if I go to my waveform viewer and not lose my, so I just got out and went to my waveform viewer and went to an AC generator, because these are just a 2-wire AC pulse generator, and usually I go down to about a 1 or 2 volt scale. And if I turn the rotor, except for now it's not neutral. Alright, with it in neutral, if I turn the rotor hub, you can see just by, you know, turning it by hand, I'm getting a AC signal. Usually if it's a volt, if you can get, you know, near a volt, you know, the computer can see it. There are some of those Chevy trucks that you'll still get the signal, but the sensor rusts away. And if you compare, you know, left to right, and you'll see, you know, a couple tenths of a volt on one sensor, and you'll see, you know, a volt on the other sensor. Now I'm on the volt scale, a little bit of hash, but you can see, and that's not even turning it hard. So you'll actually get, you know, that pulse when you come to the final stop, like under 6 miles an hour or whatever, and it's usually just pulling the sensor out and cleaning it. This one here is bolted into the hub. Actually, it's part of the hub bearing assembly, so the sensor itself isn't serviceable. So, you know, my next step was, I know the computer, it's a hard code, it's on now, so the fact that I don't have an open circuit on the hub, my next check was to check the actual system circuit, and I know the computer sends like a 5-volt bias across the, you know, high and low of this sensor back to the ABS module, so I'm gonna see if I have that stuff. Alright, my printers are off, so I don't know, hopefully this comes through, but the left front sensor down here, you have the light blue and the yellow going to it, and then you can see there's a junction point in the engine harness, which will actually show up a little bit later in this video. But if I go to zoom this in a little bit, the tan yellow, or the light blue and the yellow, the sensor signal and the low reference. So the light blue, I should see a voltage coming out of this anti-lock traction control unit. So back over here, I have my 2 test leads in there, and my purple wire is in the light blue. I don't know, just to take my word for it. But my purple wire is back probing the light blue wire. So I have my positive lead on my purple, and if I go exit out of here and I just go back to my multimeter, and I'll go to voltage. Key's not on yet, I don't think. But if I just take my ground lead and I hook it up to a chassis ground, yeah, key's already on. I'm seeing the 5-volt reference, but right there is an indication for me, just because I've seen this before, that there's something wrong, because I have the sensor plugged in. You know, when I unplug it, I should see, I just unplugged it, nothing happened. When I unplug it, I should see this voltage. I've seen it on other, you know, DPFE sensors and stuff, where you know, if you unplug the sensor, you're going to see the circuit, you know, bias voltage, and that's how the computer knows that the circuit's good or bad. And I'm getting a left front circuit code, so since the hub, you know, bearing and sensor aren't open, it's in the wiring or the computer. So just to confirm this, I'm going to go to the other side. The phone's going to ring after hours. Alright, now I'm on the right front, and I have it back probed with my little jumpers again. I have the purple wire, my purple wire, on the vehicle. It looks kind of like a light green, I think that's what I saw in the wiring diagram, and then the tan would be on my black wire, which is the low reference. So over at the meter, you see I'm seeing 0.6 of a volt. So if I were to take and unplug this sensor, actually if I take my, I should see pretty near the same, because the low reference is a ground. So if I put my black on the ground, I'm still seeing pretty much the same thing. So if I unplug that sensor, get over here, as soon as I unplug it, there's my 5-volt 4.83. Plug it back in. If I can do it with my hand here. Plug it back in, back to my 0.6. So I have a bad low reference wire, the signal return or whatever you want to call it, the ground side of this circuit. So the computer knows that there's a circuit problem as soon as I turn the key on. Okay, while I'm here, I decided I could just graph this one. I'm on, I got a 2-volt scale, but my baseline's a little cleaner, and I think it's actually up higher, like a couple tenths of a volt instead of at the 0 mark, which is, I'm not sure about that yet, but you know, if I spin it at the same speed, I'm getting my probably 0.8 of a volt that I was getting on the other one. So looks like a little bit cleaner of a signal. So I'm not sure if it's because I have it back probed. I'll get back to that one and see what the repaired end looks like. Alright, I had to go back over to the other side because when I saw my difference in you know, on the waveform viewer, and I saw my difference where my baseline was, realizes there's still voltage in the circuit. And since it's a complete circuit, I actually have the key out and I have the car locked, so I'm not sure how long this stays alive, but you can see I still have my 0.6 of a volt. And if I take and ground, I took the signal return off, and if I go to ground it, now I'm lying, but I actually have a complete circuit, and for some reason if I unplug the sensor and go to ground, I still have my 5 volts even though the car is off. So I'm not sure how long this takes to time out, but what threw me when I was going to go check my just resistance, because I was looking at the waveform, I figured I'd just duplicate what I did on the other side. I have it disconnected right now. When I plug it in, I have like 7,000 ohms, and they only want like 850 to 1300. So I'm fooling myself with voltage that's in the system. So what I'm doing here, by back probing the sensor in the car, since this thing is staying alive, isn't a valid test. Now the other side worked fine because I do have a circuit problem. So this one here, I would have to get the good reading, I'm going to have to unplug this unit, and I'm going to have to check, I'll put this back over here, I'm actually going to have to check the sensor with no wires hooked up to it. So if I touch those two, if I can do it here on take my ground and hook it back up to my wire. There's my 1.1 ohms. So everything I did at the beginning was wrong. For some reason this car is staying alive and the voltage in the system screwed up my reading. So, you know, if I go back to my waveform viewer, with no voltage in the system, or no complete circuit, I might have had voltage on the one side but no ground, so now my baseline is at 0, and well, it's in park now, but my signal looks the same. So if you're going to do this on the resistance end, either check and make sure the car powered down or not by unplugging it and checking for system voltage on the signal wire, or just unplug it and check it that way. So been a while since I've done one of these, so I almost fooled myself, but either way the right front is doing the same as the left front with it unplugged, and the right front's in spec and I have a signal. They both look the same, so I'm still on the ground low reference side of the left front, so we'll go back over there. Alright, real quick before I do that, back at my checking for my system voltage with the sensor unplugged. I have the 4 volts, so I'm on this side, I think it's a light green wire. So if I go to the tan wire, if I can get a good picture. If I go to the tan wire now, you can see I'm hooked up to the return wire, and I'm hooked up to a body ground over there. So as I creak along, you can see I have no voltage there because it's essentially a ground. But if I were to check just under my multimeter and check resistance through that circuit, I have, you know, maybe 100 ohms. So I mean, it's not a true ground. That's just go to my 500 scale. So I'm just checking resistance through the low reference back through the anti-lock brake computer to ground. So now I can check this on the other side and confirm that I don't have anything. We'll go there. Alright, hooked back up to the other side, and you can see I'm open loop. I have my ground hooked up right there. I have my positive hooked up through a jumper lead over to the white wire, or whatever my signal return wire was, and my ground's up on the body. So the next step, I'm not gonna go this far because it's a pain in the butt and I already did it, but the connector for the anti-lock brake is underneath those brake pipes, and you just flip this little thing up here and you can pull the connector off and check the circuit. And of course the circuit was open. I'm checking from there all the way over to my sensor, which is what I'm suspecting all along. So the next thing I did was start looking for that junction point that they put in the wiring diagram, and I started pulling the connector apart and I started untaping everything. And this broken wire right here, I actually did that by hawking on it a little bit too much, but you can see there's a heat shrink connection right here, and then there's another heat shrink connection, and when I was trying to pull the little clip that holds it up here, I pulled on this wire and it popped out. So of course I was all excited thinking, hey, there's the problem, but that's not the problem, because if I go and take this wire and check resistance from, I'm already back probed there. So if I take the one that I'm just checking through my ground, if I take that off and I touch it to this one, which I can't seem to do with one hand, I'm hooked up and I am still open loop. So my problem lies in this connector from, or this harness from that connector to that wire. So it's somewhere in here. I'm actually gonna probably pull it apart and see if I can find it, but the fact that when I pulled this stuff apart, this wire broke pretty easy. It's pretty brittle. So it probably has a lot to say about the integrity of the wires inside here. So I have a harness coming tomorrow, but since I'm here playing around, I decided that I would instrument this back the way I had it. So I had my positive on my signal wire, which has the 4 volts, and then I'll hook my ground back up to here, and then I'll go over to my, get off the ohm scale, go to voltage. You can see I still have voltage. It's been like 20 minutes. I don't even know how long this car stays awake, but I still have my voltage there, so, which I shouldn't, because remember I unplugged the other side to get my voltage, plugged it in, and it went to the 6/10. So if I take another jumper wire, which I have them laying all over the place and I can't find them, right there. And then I back probe the low reference wire, pretty much my ground, and then I take this end of it and I go back here and touch that wire, which is the one I broke, and you can see now I have my 0.61. so essentially, instead of, if I take this back off, just to prove it again, back to my 4.8, complete the circuit, drops down to the 0.61. So my problem lies in this little pigtail. The other thing I found interesting is, car's still alive, I don't know why. If I were to turn the key back on, saying there's no codes present, because I actually fixed the wire. So if I go to history codes, I know I've set a couple of them. I set the right front unplugging it. Current codes, no codes present. Now if I go over here and I disconnect the wire that I just plugged in, keys on, I'll unplug this real quick. I'll just pull it out of here and you'll hear as soon as I unplugged it, the car dinged and probably sent the service traction control again. And there it is. That's back on, and I didn't even refresh my code list. Turn my light off. The code showed up immediately. So there we go. That's the diagnostic end. I'm done for the night. I gotta wait for a part. So I'll pull that apart and we'll find where the failure was, and then this one can be fixed. Go home. Alright, so I pulled this apart. I just cut the this heavily insulated insulation part off of the wire so I could look at the integrity of the wire, and didn't really see anything. And then I got right to the very end, which kind of sucks because I could have probably just fixed this in the car, but this part was sitting right about here, and if I pull that off, you can see that one spot of this yellow wire where it looks like this one's probably ready to go too, but it looks like this must be a flex part, because if I just pull on the wire, it's actually broken right there. That's how close I was to the end of it where my problem lies. So, but it's all, like I said, the integrity of the wire is pretty bad. If it was mine, I'd probably just put a butt connector right there and be done, wait for the light to come back on, but I don't think the harness is too bad of a price, so there it is. There's the failure point. I'm just gonna put the new one in tomorrow and it'll be done. There's the new harness. It's even an AC Delco. So we'll solder this bad boy in and that'll be it. I don't know if this is gonna show up or not, but I had a heck of a time trying to solder this stuff. So I peeled the insulation back and I got down to the factory crimp joint, and it honestly just looks like maybe high heat and that plastic, you know, that shrink tubing stuff is all that was on there, but it just looks like it was crimped together. So I just had to use those crimp joints or crimp connectors with the built-in shrink wrap in it and just crimp it up in the harness, and then I'm gonna just put that wire loom stuff back on there and tie it up in there, and that'll be it. Figure out what to say. I gotta get this hooked back up. What was I gonna say?
I don't know. What were you gonna say? What would your brother say? What would Scanner Danner say?
Probably something way more complex than I'm gonna say, other than I started it up
The light went out.
and the light went out. There you go. All the lights are out, ABS lights out. Go to codes. No response. Well, if I plugged it in. Alright. Now that I'm plugged back in, no codes. So if the traction control doesn't go off when I try this, we can confirm wheel speed. See if it'll at least move. There you go. Where's the left front at? There it is. They're both at 12 miles an hour. Hit the brake. Actually, I'm set in kilometers, but either way, once they start moving, they're equal. So there's my confirmed repair. Say thanks for watching.
You got a crowd now.
Say thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. We're gonna be